why? Just why?
I remember a day way back in 5th grade when all the boys and girls were separated and we were all corralled into different classrooms. Now, to this day, I don't know exactly what the boys were told, as when we returned together as a large group, everybody was a little bit hushed and kind of embarrassed to talk about what had gone on exactly in each room. As you can correctly guess, in the girls' breakout room, we got the puberty talk. We were informed that in the near future, we would be going through some physical changes, hormonal changes, getting our periods, and becoming young women. Now, getting our periods was described to us in very clinical terms, that monthly we would be shedding the lining of our uteruses. Now, as a 10-year-old, I didn't really understand what that meant exactly, but I definitely don't remember anybody talking about blood even a single time. So I left that room feeling a little bit confused about exactly what was in store for me, but I was also excited about the prospect of becoming a woman. You know, as little kids, we're all so eager to grow up. So getting my period, well, if that meant that I was no longer a little girl, well, I couldn't wait to get my period. So stupid. So the momentous day arrived. I got my period when I was 12 years old. And oh boy, this was not what I was hoping for at all. Not at all. From day one, my periods have always been a full 7 days long and really, really heavy. A quick Google search tells me that the average amount of blood lost during each menstrual cycle is less than 16 teaspoons, with the average being somewhere around 6 to 8 teaspoons. Here's exactly what that looks like. My little juice cup here, this is 16 teaspoons. I put food coloring in the water so you could see it. And this is 8 teaspoons. Now, I have never measured the quantity of blood coming out of me, but I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that it is more than these 16 teaspoons every month. In college, I started taking the pill, and I was told that it would probably lighten my periods and reduce the length of each one. No such luck for this girl. I stayed on the pill into my 30s, and when I'm guessing I was somewhere around 34 or 35, I decided to stop taking it because, well, I hadn't had a boyfriend for a long time, so I wasn't concerned about pregnancy. And frankly, I just didn't want to pay for it anymore. After being off the pill for several years, I noticed, much to my chagrin, that my periods were becoming heavier. So I went to the doctor, told him all these problems, and he recommended that I go back on the pill. So I decided, sure, I'll give that another try. Well, that was a mistake. My body just could not do it. I would come home regularly from work and just lie down and cry for absolutely no reason. I would literally look at myself in the mirror and say, "Why are you crying?" And the answer was, "I don't know." Also during my periods, still 7 days long and still heavy, this is a little embarrassing, but my boobs hurt so badly. They just ached so much. It was miserable. So I said, I just can't do this. And after a few months, I stopped taking the pill altogether. And right away, during that first month, all of the crying and all of the boob pain completely disappeared. So for several years, I just kind of grinned and bared it. And then something happened that, well, I wish I could forget it. I was 40 years old, and while in the shower one evening, I had quite a shock. Now, ladies, we know that with our periods, when we're menstruating, we just don't have a small trickle of blood or even a heavy continuous flow of blood that's coming out. We have to deal with blood clots as well. Some little, some not so little. So while in the shower one evening, I don't remember if I coughed or if I sneezed, but there was some force created. And the blood clot that flew out of me and hit the shower floor left me absolutely aghast. It was huge, and it looked like one of my internal organs had just fallen out of my body. I thought, this cannot be normal. And I even had the fleeting thought of, should I pick that up and try to put it back in? I was horrified and completely disgusted. So back to the OBGYN I went. After this lovely event, he recommended that I have a saline ultrasound to see if maybe I had polyps or fibroids that were the cause of all of this heavy bleeding and enormous blood clots. Now, if you don't know what a saline ultrasound is, you're put up in the stirrups for like a regular pelvic exam. The speculum is inserted, and then a tiny little tube is snaked up through your cervix, which hurts. And then they inject fluid up into your uterus to separate the walls of the uterus. They remove the speculum in the tube, and then they perform a vaginal ultrasound to look at the walls of your uterus. Now, ladies, if you have not had this done before and you ever need one, a word of advice. Do not make plans to go back to work or meet your friends out for lunch after having this done, because all of that fluid that they just pumped up into you is gonna come out. They have you sit up and rock back and forth on basically what's a big puppy pad, but all of that fluid that they just pumped into you, it doesn't all evacuate at once. So I suggest you get yourself a pair of Depends or a really big maxi pad. They gave me a pad to wear home, but it was just not adequate for the job. When I got home, I looked like I had peed my pants. Anyways, I get the results back from my ultrasound, and thankfully, everything was normal. So my OBGYN basically told me that because I was getting older, heavier periods were normal and even to be expected. And what was his recommendation? That I go back on the pill. No! Hell no! So, since I was absolutely adamant about not going back on the pill, he suggested that I get an IUD, which I told him, okay, well, I'll think about that. I did a little bit of research online about IUDs and spoke with some friends about them, and I heard some great things about IUDs, but I also heard some horror stories. So personally for me, I decided against it. At that point, I just figured that this is how it's supposed to be. This is what my body is doing, and I guess I just have to live with it. And since there seemed to be absolutely no solution that I was happy with, I just tolerated heavy periods every single month. And I didn't go back to my OBGYN for almost 6 years. Now, ladies, please don't follow my bad example. Please be responsible and get your yearly pap smear. In retrospect, I see very clearly that the worsening of my periods in my late 30s marks the beginning of my transition into perimenopause. I always thought that as you aged, your period would get lighter and lighter and then just eventually fizzle out altogether once you go into menopause. I really had no idea. Anyways, enough about my period for right now. I have more fabulous period stories to share with you. Fret not, but I'll save those for future episodes as each one deserves its own spotlight. So until the next time, please share your own stories with me in the comments below. And please like this video by clicking on the thumbs up button below, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with your friends and family. I really would appreciate it. And one last thing before I cut. I think I'll always end with this. If you can manage only one thing today, please be kind. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. I'm a TV watcher, and something that I've learned from tampon and maxi pad commercials is that having my period shouldn't prevent me from going out and having a good time. So, I'm here tonight at Astro Skate. I've got my period and I'm going roller skating. Okay, that was not graceful at all, but I'm leaving with all my teeth still firmly planted in my head and no broken bones. So I'm counting that as a success! And most important of all, it was fun! Who wants to go next weekend?